Meow. Boom. Welcome back to the
Job.
Al Rubin Show.
Hello, and as you may have guessed from my comrade's incredible impression of a fighter jet, today we're going to be talking about tech.
In warfare.
Transition.
So, in this very, very fun episode, we've got planned for
I know
you
about
today.
fun. I mean, don't think about all the people who are dying, but the technology that's killing them is very interesting.
Yeah. So we're
yeah.
gonna talk about when the technology was starting first to be used: drones, AI, communication, biotech and weapons, robot soldiers, and cyber warfare.
And how they will hopefully not be used in the future.
Yes.
So without any further ado, let's begin.
So when was tech first used, Job?
Well, let me tell you. Technology has always kind of been linked to the military, as have a lot of kind of new developments, because the fact is, the military has a lot of money, so they can afford to invest in these new, novel ideas. The first computer, in fact, or one of the first computers, the Whirlwind, was directly used by the US Navy. It was basically a really big calculator.
Probably the size of a room as well.
Oh yeah, probably massive. That was in 1951, which...
With the military, everything sparked from the military, right? Because
Exactly, yeah.
Because everyone wanted to go from that. The military spearheaded it because they could use the technology for their advantage.
Exactly. And this was, of course, the Cold War, so there was a lot of money about, a lot of fear, and people needed this kind of technology to protect themselves. And that was a precursor to the much more famous Sage 1 and Sage 2. Sage pretty much just coordinated radar data, took all the data from the radars, and it used that to track missiles, do all sorts of stuff.
And create maps.
It wasn't the most technically impressive nowadays, but back then this was, cutting edge, absolutely incredible.
And this definitely changed how people used warfare because you could track every movement.
Yeah, pretty much. It just created like a situational image, here's where all the missiles are, that kind of thing. And it was used to predict air attacks. Obviously, this being early computers, it went out of date pretty soon. Originally it was built by IBM, which will be a reoccurring name, won't they? And actually, when it was decommissioned, part of it was used as a prop in Doctor Strangelove. So, as you can imagine, if you've seen Doctor Strangelove, absolutely massive thing, a bunch of screens, incredibly complicated. Not that impressive nowadays, but, this was baby steps, wasn't it? Baby steps.
Also, we had a little bit about Alan Turing.
Yeah, of course.
So he created the Enigma breaking machine, which was very vital in warfare in World War II.
What's his name?
Alan Turing.
No, I know what his name was. The machine that he made.
The machine was called the bomb, ironically.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Huh.
And it cracked the Enigma, so you could... So
that was a bit earlier, but still very famous.
Very famous.
Very famous computer scientist.
Yes, founder.
So that's where it all started. And obviously over the years, technology became a thing that wasn't just used to kill people, thankfully. But unfortunately, it does still have its place in the military. A lot of technology in the military relies on technology. So let's talk about where it is today.
So drones are the big thing now. They're
No, not because of how popular they are, because of how effective they are.
Yeah, they're quite infamous. Infamous drones.
Obviously, a bunch of terrorist leaders killed by drones. God, this podcast is really... Probably, if we were a monetized podcast, we would definitely not get this one monetized.
Yeah.
What do you think of drones? I think is the big question. Do you think they're ethical to use in warfare?
I think half of it is they're quite ethical because you're not putting a pilot at risk. And they're quite effective at what they do, but at the same time, they are being used to kill people en masse.
Let's say we're not like advocating for war, because we're not.
Then actually,
in a defensive war,
they're probably
would you advocate for them?
Yes, because they are saving they're saving lives. They're highly more accurate. You can't always go wrong with drones.
It's a lot easier. And I think
you can remotely drop bombs, so you can pull out. It's a lot safer for everyone.
What are your thoughts on the whole thing where people are saying, oh, but, it's like a video game, the pilots are controlling the drones and they're killing people like that. Do you think that actually has an effect? Do you think pilots are maybe more ruthless, more, violent when they know they're not at risk?
Possibly, but at the same time, they're mostly being used to drop bombs.
Mm.
But does gamifying it make it wrong in a way?
It's definitely it's scary, isn't it? But honestly,
Yeah.
I think it's just. I think in favour.
But then at the same time, less people are at kind of air quotes risk.
Yeah. Well, ironically, more people are being killed.
But ultimately, people
because it's more effective.
Still, people are fighting. So,
like, yeah, these people would be like targeted either way, whether that be by a drone or not. The thing is, because of how effective it is, those people are more likely to actually die.
Yeah.
Which is not a pleasant thing to think about. But I
especially as they're being used for lots of assassinations.
But if they're used in the right way, I feel like you can kind of justify it, can't you?
Yeah, probably. So the countries that are quite famous for using them, so they're used quite a lot in the US.
Yeah,
and
of course.
Drones are huge.
Because they have the money for it, don't they?
Like, I don't think you realise the scale of a drone. They're like meters along, not
they are
like
massive.
the little things you see people driving around in the park. They're huge.
These aren't your like G-Tech, drones.
These
Babies
are
first.
Big, yeah. These are they're also used in Ukraine, quite good in that half.
Oh, what hasn't been used in Ukraine at this point?
Exactly. And they're surface-to-air missiles. So, yeah, they can knock down air defences and stuff. Which is quite good. And they're used against armoured columns of people.
Because they're very vulnerable if you think about it. Big, long rows of tanks, trucks, easily droneable, if that's the word.
But they're quite difficult to attack in any other way. So, they're quite efficient in that way.
Yeah, I suppose so. Both sides are using them, unfortunately, or perhaps fortunately. Although the allegations they've been used against civilians.
Yeah.
Not great. I mean, yeah.
So let's talk about pros and cons. So they're cheaper, they're more accurate, and there are less casualties.
Yeah.
For military uses. But we've covered all that already, so yeah.
I think there is always the risk of, if we're out there making these technologies better, what happens if this technology gets into the hands of the bad guys?
Yeah.
I mean,
I suppose a very efficient killing weapon in the hands of a terrorist group.
Do you want that?
Probably not. And
they are inevitably. Like, in the same way the Soviets got the bomb after the Americans used it. Yeah. Eventually these groups are going to get their hands on these drones.
But by then, there'll be better killing machines of kinds.
Oh, I know. It's terrifying.
Which is horrible to think about, but who knows what war comes into now. So, do you reckon you'd use drones?
If I were a military guy, like leader of military, probably I'd say.
Yeah.
I think they have a lot of potential. They could make the entire, Air Force pretty much obsolete, I reckon. Which is arguably a good thing. I mean, come on. The less soldiers you have, the better, really.
Yes.
Like, the less people being killed, more people are safe. Fighting is done with less risk of casualties on your side. That's what you want, surely.
Exactly. So, for our halfway segue, we're going to do Invention of the Week, something we've thought about and...
Yes. My invention of the week. So this morning, I went into the bathroom. I won't go into too much detail, don't worry. And on the floor, I saw this massive... beetle, absolutely huge. It was I'd say half the length of your middle finger. Or no, maybe that's a bit much. It was big. It was big, basically. And in a fit of rage, in a fit of fear, I killed this insect. I feel very bad about that. Because, well, it is terrifying. And I think, alright, if you didn't want to die, why did you make yourself look so menacing? It had pincers, it was terrifying. But I think it's wrong to kill bugs if you have the choice. Wouldn't you agree?
Vegan speaking in you.
Maybe this is vegan speak, but I think... we should aim to kill. No, we should aim to, release into the wild any insects that we find in our house. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah.
So I found this weird, it's like the cup and paper technique on steroids. This strange invention where it's like a rod, and then you slam it down and you cover the insect, and then you roll this thing forward, and I can't really describe it in terms of words. It captures the insect, and then you quickly just unroll it and then let it free. I may buy it. It is £18, which is a lot for what it is. But personally, I think, yeah. Well, I want to know from you. Are you the kind of guy who kills insects when they're in your room? If so, what insects do you kill?
I just leave them be.
You leave them in your room?
I leave my room and then just open a window and hope for the best.
You hope for the best. What about a spider? What if there was a massive spider crawling across your desk?
I usually just use a cup and paper.
Fair. See, I let spiders live. I don't let moths live because they eat the clothes.
Moths eat clothes.
They're
pain.
I get rid of them. I let flies. I put flies next to the window, and then I hope they get out. But of course, this is flies, so they'll always find a way. of avoiding the massive open window and flying further into your room.
Yeah.
But if it's anything other than those, especially this like terrifying ass like beetle from hell, it's dying, unfortunately.
Cool. So, AI.
Yes.
How do you think AI is adapting warfare?
It's the elephant in the room, really, isn't it? AI, so much potential. AI tanks are being developed. AI flying vehicles, massive amounts of AI going into this industry. There's an AI boat that they made called the Sea Hunter, which is terrifying. South Korea's got a bloody AI machine gun. I mean,
that's a bit scary.
A bit scary, yeah.
Do you think AI will progress into the future then?
I feel like it's got to. Like, a bunch of countries are saying like, we can't let this happen, you know.
I think it's wrong to have an AI killing machine. Because then...
I think whether it's wrong or whether...
What happens if the AI rebel on us and kind of like...
The Terminator scenario.
Yeah.
I think whether or not it's going to become popular, I mean, among militaries, and whether or not it's right are two different questions. I think it's definitely going to be popular, because it's going to be so much more effective. So it's definitely going to take over a lot of the military as we know it. I doubt... Maybe this is just me being overconfident. I doubt it's going to take over the world. At least not intentionally.
Yeah.
I think, there's probably going to be a few machines that go a bit rogue. Obviously, I'm no expert in AI, but I feel like that's just a given due to human error and stuff. But I don't think an organised, coordinated AI would ever want to,
I think you could probably shut it down
fairly easily. But who knows? If the AI overlords are watching us in the future, hello, please don't kill us. Do you think it's right? Because personally...
I don't think you should be using AI for warfare. As much as it should be safe, it's posing too much of a danger in the Terminator series.
Do you think that's because it's too effective? It's too
good? It's too effective because they're lethal, autonomous weapons. Are they ethical if there's no humans, though? But just have robots fight your battle, maybe. But interestingly, the US stopped exporting advanced semiconductors to China because... They didn't want China doing exactly
because most of the semiconductors are made in Taiwan, which will let you make up your mind whether or not that's part of China. But obviously, the more semiconductors you have, these AI models take a lot of computers to train and all that. So the more semiconductors you have, the better. So by limiting it, they let them maintain their edge on China almost.
Yeah. But the Chinese have 7 billion kind of pounds into it.
Is it pounds or dollars?
Dollars into it, sorry. Into the Chinese war AI. And then in total it's $8.6 billion dollars total for all their AI in that country.
I mean, it makes sense, doesn't it?
So it's a lot of AI.
It's a very, maybe promising is not the word. It has a lot of potential. What it's promising is mass murder, so not very promising, but I feel like it's inevitable that it's going to be popular, unfortunately.
But that's why the UK has proposed a ban on all AI weapons.
Do you think that's going to be effective?
I think it definitely would. It's good that we're taking the initiative to stop, or maybe is that because we can't compete with it and we don't want to?
Maybe.
We're
sad that we don't have AI.
Yeah, we're sad that we don't have AI and we can't keep up. So in order to keep everyone safe, we've kind of posed the idea that we should get rid of them because we don't have any protection against them.
I mean, how would you approach it? Would you invest tons and tons and tons in AI? Would you try and limit it at all? What would you do if you were Supreme Commander?
I think I'd definitely put money into AI and keep it going, but there needs to be a kill switch.
Yes.
They can't get too powerful. It's the point where they can start rewriting their own code is when it starts getting bad.
Maybe we've watched too many action movies, but I think there are major risks.
If you've ever watched Starsight and Cytonic, and they're really good reads by Brandon Stanson.
Yeah.
And they're really good, and there's a character in there called Mbot who is an AI, and it's all kind of sci-fi, and they're all really scared of AIs. And that's really interesting because it tells you why they're all kind of scared of AIs in the later series. So that's a really good, interesting talks on AI.
Yeah, I think AI is definitely a talk for another time.
Yeah.
It goes very deep, doesn't it?
But overall, I think we can say AI in warfare is a bad thing.
Is there a single invention here where we're going to say it's a good thing? I guess drones. We have kind of agreed that drones are a good thing, but
at the same time we don't agree.
Still being used to kill people, isn't it? We do not endorse war. Hot take here: war is not good.
Yeah. So communication. I think it's fair to say communication plays a big role in warfare.
Yeah, I mean, technology plays a big role in communication, full stop, you know? I mean, it's inevitable that's going to bleed over to warfare. Obviously, there is Starlink. Hint, hint. Wait, go watch your old episode on that.
Yeah, if you haven't, if you want to know more about Starlink, we do have an episode released a little while ago, so go check that out. It's a riveting episode.
I feel like it's inevitable that's going to be used in warfare, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's so convenient and
satellites detecting.
They have the money for it, don't they?
Yeah. And satellites can detect everything from every incoming thing, from bombs to planes to missiles.
I think this is overall a pretty good idea. It's definitely going to be helpful for self-defense, that kind of thing.
And spy satellites and drones as well for communication. Because spy satellites, that's quite good.
And the scary thing is, anybody can do that. It doesn't take a proper military drone to make a spy satellite.
But then it does cause the issue of different countries finding out they've got spy drones or spy satellites. Yeah. Not very good.
I mean, what can you really do? You can shoot down the drones. You can't really shoot down a satellite, but it's not going to stop the countries from doing it.
Yeah.
And maybe it is a good thing, you know. Do you think this could be used to prevent wars, maybe?
Possibly, but its communication is better to be is a key part of war and keeping everyone safe, I reckon.
And also like just keeping track of where all the troops are and stuff.
Yeah, and defense and where you are.
Yeah.
So now we move into a bit more technical tech.
Yeah.
In biotech.
One of the more scary ones, if you can believe it, gets worse than AI.
So biotech, I reckon. If the latest James Bond film,
I still haven't seen.
Really good.
Spoil it for me. I don't care.
I'm not going to spoil it for everyone, but they have a big bioweapon that he has to try and stop from killing mass millions.
How so, like, bioweapon? Are we talking like...
targeted, so you can input what type of people you want to go and kill, and it targets them. And it was like a mist or something, and it just... So you could say, I want all white males dead, and like a sprinkler system sprinkles down this mist, and then all white men dead.
Yeah.
So yeah, targeted bioweapons are quite dangerous, and their weapons of
in theory, they could do a lot of harm.
Yeah, and they're weapons of mass destruction, and because of that, they are now prohibited under law.
I mean, thank God.
Because these are very, very dangerous, especially if you can target people, and bioweapons, meaning it like chemical kind of weapons, all sorts of bad stuff. And twisting the human, and just not human nature, but nature in general, twisting it into harmful, nasty.
Are you against that kind of thing in general?
Yeah.
Are you one of the like don't mess with nature types, or
not don't mess with nature, just don't. But you gotta be careful. You don't want to change something that wasn't meant to be changed.
I think for medical reasons, yes, mess with nature. You know, gene editing, that kind of
reasons,
thing.
Yeah.
But as soon as it gets into the whole warfare side,
I think exploiting it, but not changing it, I reckon.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
The problem is we say all this and we say how bad it is, and obviously it's terrible, but like they're still going to do all of this, aren't they?
But then this is a war crime, these biotech.
That hasn't stopped people in the past.
Because you look at the there's a Mongolian bio war.
What?
Mongolian bio war, which was quite interesting, and it killed a lot of people, but.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Oh, yes, of course. Funnily enough, though, it is one of the older kinds of warfare. Way back when, Mongol Empire, they used to throw the bodies of bubonic plague victims over castle walls, and that would help the castle fall because everybody would get the bubonic plague.
Yeah.
Isn't that a fun fact, Ruben? That should have been our halfway point. Hey, welcome to the halfway point. Do you know Mongolians used to throw the rancid, infected corpses of the people they killed over walls?
Yeah.
Fascinating.
But maybe that could lead to virus shooting guns. Because imagine if you have a deadly virus that can kill someone almost instantly. We'll keep them going enough and then die.
Yeah,
and you can just shoot viruses at people, and then they'll infect, and then it could be very nasty.
I feel like only really the fringe of people are going to use that. Because that's I like to think that's even the most messed up dictators would be like, whoa.
Yeah,
hold on.
That's not...
That's a bit...
out there.
Because what happens if you use it against your own people? Stuff like that. AI is fairly easy to control. Drones are obviously really easy to control.
But you can't control viruses.
Exactly.
Very dangerous. So, robot soldiers, are they ethical?
Yes, actually. I feel like robot soldiers are just an extension of drones. In my eyes.
Yeah.
I feel like we should be encouraging militaries to adopt robot soldiers more and more.
Is that really right, though?
Yes.
Like, I suppose there are less people fighting.
Because then it's going to be much easier to not abide by war crimes, because you can program directly into these robots not to commit war crimes, whereas with humans, there's a lot of human error there.
But then it would change the war to be who's a better coder, who's better tactical, who's better...
Is that not better? I mean, people don't get hurt.
Yeah, that's good, yeah.
I feel like it's good, and especially considering, rates of conscription into the military are already dropping a lot.
I was going to say, they're really struggling with recruitment.
Because believe it or not, people don't want to die.
Yeah.
Maybe back in the day when they
aren't paid that much either. People want money, and when you're not being paid that much, and...
Back in the day when you could, raid and take all the loot, there was an appeal to being in the military. But, nowadays, because of how, law respecting we are, that we don't commit as many war crimes, it's got a lot better. And nowadays people are realizing, wait, if I have all this luxury and I give all that up to fight in the military, why would you?
Yeah.
Would you fight in the military?
Probably not. I don't think my skills would be valued in a military setting.
But would you encourage other people to fight in the military?
I think it's very much your own decision.
I think so too. I think maybe if you're really struggling, because obviously you get your degrees paid for sometimes.
But it's definitely far off.
If you have the money not to, don't join the military.
Yeah.
I think.
But then robot soldiers are far off. We've seen.
Are
robots.
they?
Well, actually, we've seen robots.
Boston
before.
Dynamics, their humanish robot,
which was doing all sorts of parkour.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's not a stretch to think, oh, what if you strap a gun to that?
Yeah.
Which it's not fun to think about, but I would be in favour of robot soldiers. Yeah. I would say, yeah.
So cyber warfare, I think it's too big to fit in.
Yeah.
So
we've agreed we're going to do a separate episode on this.
If you want to hear another episode, make sure you make it known. If you want to, in that little Q&A points down in the
Do we have a
comments.
Q&A?
We do at the bottom of each Spotify thing.
I mean, I don't listen to this podcast. I hate the sound of my own voice.
But make sure you let us know if you want to hear another cyber warfare.
I think it'd be a lot to talk about. I know there's a lot to talk about, but if we can just skim over quickly.
So you have the hacking the US government and that 15-year-old.
Yes.
The US government. Not on a...
Pretty
not
impressive.
Very good, yeah. There's I think it's definitely more prominent now. It's definitely a lot more wars being fought over cyber.
Yeah.
Because you've got bot farms and DDoS attacks making it very, very easy.
And also, ironically, the more the military relies on technology, the more likely they're going to get attacked through cyber warfare. So, double-edged sword if I've ever seen one.
And it's also used quite modernly in the Russians hacking supporting Ukraine countries.
Yeah.
Which they hacked a power plant on which wasn't very good, and whole electricity grid on Christmas.
It's so advanced that
if you have the power to stop the electricity on key days like Christmas, that is
terrifying.
So that is very dangerous.
And how do you defend against this stuff?
You've just got to have
counter hackers, basically.
Counter hackers, yeah.
GCHQ. Would you agree with the statement I've heard quite a bit that cyber warfare and cybercrime, cyber warfare is eventually going to be the most important use of technology in the future?
Yes, 100%.
I think second only to communication.
Yeah.
I think cyber warfare, because it makes sense and it's so effective that why wouldn't it be?
Exactly. So let us know if you want more. That was a really quite long and fun episode. There was quite a lot to unpack.
Fun is a strong word. We talked a lot about some pretty heavy topics. It's important to know what's out there, and a lot of these innovations, they're being developed by really talented and impressive people. It's just what they're being used for, and at the end of the day, all we want is to reduce the amount of casualties and hopefully avoid war altogether. And maybe some of these will help us do that.
Yeah.
So, thank you very much for listening. Be sure to drop us a follow, guys, and like the podcast. We, of course, have the Q&A, so if you want to see more, especially that cyber warfare episode, make sure to let us know.
Adios.
We'll see you next week.
See you next week.